this might be it.
Yeah.
This might be the end of Aaron. I'm going to drown today.
Communication skills matter as much as technical skills for engineers.
I remember thinking to myself, man, this guy has no clue how to communicate with another human being. Shocker, I did not hire this person.
Communication skills are like everything.
I think culture really, it stems from the top, right?
Yeah.
As the leader, you need to be demonstrating the culture that you want to promote within the organization.
UI, UX, aesthetics, etc. It's already really, really important. It is about to become so important that it's almost the only thing that matters.
I recently saw a tool from an engineering company and it does the thing it's supposed to do, but it just looks like garbage. And I would happily pay more for something that does the same exact functionality, but just looks a little better.
A lot of engineers struggle with There's a lot of leadership, founder type content out there where you're going to hear some, VP at some big business division unit at GE talking about how they built a company or grew from 500 to 1,000. And it's not super applicable or tangible to you. But today on this pod, we've got a guest who talks through how to build and operate and manage like a tight team of between 5 and 20 employees, high functioning, lots of engineers, and like a very technical medical device adjacent workspace. And you're going to learn so much from this about not just kind of the engineering tools and tips stuff, but like how to do this the right way, be a good business leader and all that stuff. So who are we talking about? Aaron Moncur, accomplished engineer, entrepreneur, 2 decades of product development and leadership experience, founded Pipeline Design and Engineering in 2009. He's got his mechanical engineering degree and a master's in bioengineering. Pipeline's become like a cornerstone in the industry. They partner with some of the world's largest medical device companies working on bespoke automations, advanced manufacturing solutions. So stick around for this whole episode. If you stick around to the end, you're going to learn about Pipeline and like the way they do company culture, core values, different tactics and strategies, like very specific actionable stuff that helps them actually drive better business outcomes. The custom machines, fixtures, automation, like projects, and then some of the kind of equipment that they sell, their community initiatives, and then the role of AI, new engineering tools in product development and different workflows. And there's even some tools that we shout out at the end that you can use in your kind of everyday workflow or in your business like tomorrow. So stick around for the whole thing. Aaron's an absolute rock star. You don't want to miss this one. Aaron, welcome to the pod. Where do we find you today?
Thank you so much. I am here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona.
Nice. I love Arizona. The weather's amazing. And being a golfer, I there's some of the best golf in and around those parts, like Tempe, Scottsdale. It's frankly awesome. I was there in February and it was like the weather in February there is just like, it's unreal.
That's the time to be here. Yeah, for sure. My brother-in-law is a big golfer. Literally, he's 6'7", but he's been doing it for a long time as well. And they were here visiting just a few weeks ago. And every time he comes into town, he gets excited to go out and golf. He loves it so much. See, I don't know that I could love a sport this much. He loves it so much that he's here in the dead of summer and he's out there golfing in, 110 degree weather. I don't know that I could do that, but he loves it.
See, that's a lot. That's a lot. When it gets that hot, it's pretty miserable, but we get some hot weather in Arkansas, but it's never that bad. I've been there, Arizona in the summer, and it's like unbearable.
Yeah.
So before we turn this into a weather and golf podcast, which I wouldn't mind too much, I'm sure people are curious to like learn more about you and about Pipeline, but maybe I'd love to start with you personally first. I always like I think you've got like an interesting story, and I'm always interested in like how people came to be the people that they are, and then obviously do the things that they did. So maybe just start with you, introduce yourself to the audience and like tell them a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. I own Pipeline Design and Engineering. We're an engineering services company out here in Tempe, Arizona, just outside Phoenix. We focus primarily on machine design, custom manufacturing equipment, automation, test fixtures, that sort of thing. But we also do some general product design, product development projects. In fact, that's where we started, but over the years, we've kind of shifted towards this focus on machine design and fixtures and automation. Can I share a little bit about like personal background as well, or should we keep
that's what I was wanting. Yeah, like about you, your background personally. Yeah.
Great. Great. Okay, so I grew up born and raised in Hawaii. I'm 45, so born in 1979, and I was in Hawaii until I left for college. So 17 I was, and I love Hawaii. It's still, when I think of home, it's Hawaii. Even though I've been here in Arizona for longer, which is kind of sad, than I was in Hawaii, I still think of that's home for me. My brother and his family still live there. I'll share one fun story about growing up there. I spent a lot of time surfing. And when I was younger, me and my friends would go to little dinky beaches, just these little ankle slapper waves, nothing serious at all, but we'd have a good time. And then in high school, we started, my sophomore year, we started getting into a little bit bigger waves, a little bit more real. And the first time we went to what I'll call a real surf spot, Diamond Head was the spot down on the southwest corner of Oahu. It was a super far paddle. And so we get there, and like it was like a quarter-mile paddle to get out to the break.
Wow.
And so we're paddling out, and the waves were supposed to be like 5-6 foot, which is not huge, but it's bigger than what we were used to
It's
already.
a heavy
So
wave, yeah.
we were already a little worried about this, right? And we get there, and it's like, wow, it's a quarter-mile paddle to get out there. That's pretty intense. But we start, stroking out there, and we found that we were actually moving along at a really great clip. And we're like, man, we're better paddlers than we thought. We've got great arm muscles and shoulders, and we're just working our way out there. Turns out we were in a rip current. And so that sucked us out to sea. We at least knew enough to not fight the rip current. We swam perpendicular to the
Yeah.
rip current, which is what you're supposed to do. So we got out of it eventually, but now we're all the way out there, and we're in the thick of it, right? There are waves out there are breaking, and turns out it was bigger than what the surf had forecasted. So it was more like 6 to 8 foot sets coming in. Yeah, way bigger than anything that we had ever encountered. And the absolute worst place to be is right where the wave breaks, like right in front. You don't want to be there because you just get drilled and tossed underwater. And it's really hard to, like, they call it duck diving, where you dive underneath the wave. It's hard to do that right where the wave is breaking. You want to do that right before the wave breaks. Anyway, this big set comes in, 8 foot set. And that's where I find myself, right where the wave is breaking. The lip of the wave comes down, hits the water like, a foot in front of me, and I just get drilled. And I'm underwater, getting tossed around, not sure which way is up or which way is down. And I'm panicking, right? This is 15-year-old Aaron, never been out and surfed like this. And eventually I pop up, and I'm like, oh, that was pretty intense. I'm a little nervous about this. And I look out on the horizon, and there's another one coming, same size. And I start paddling as hard as I can, thinking if I can get there early enough, I can duck dive underneath this wave right before it breaks, and I'm good. So I'm paddling hard, which is risky, right? Because now I'm using more energy to hopefully get under this thing. And same thing happens. It breaks right on my head, and I get drilled, and I'm underwater, and it's white bubbles everywhere. I don't know which way is up, which way is down. I eventually break through the surface, and at this point, I'm pretty tired, right?
Yeah.
And I think, please don't let there be another one of these on the horizon. So I pop up, I look out, sure enough, one more on the horizon coming in. I start paddling as hard as I can, trying to get there before it breaks. Same thing happens. I get drilled third time, and I'm exhausted at this point, right? I'm just like barely can move, and I'm underwater. My breath is running out, and again, I don't know what way is up, what way is down. And I think to myself, I just need to pick a direction and start swimming, because I cannot hold my breath much longer. So I do that. I start getting as hard as I can, and there was a point where I remember thinking to myself, I can't hold my breath any longer. Like, I think this might be it. This might be the end of Aaron. I'm going to drown today. And I remember opening my mouth because I was just out of breath. I couldn't hold it any longer, and expecting the water to come in and fill my lungs. And right in that second, I broke through the surface, and I'm still here today. Yeah. So anyway, that was one of the formative stories of my upbringing. So my company is Pipeline Design and Engineering, and sometimes people think, oh, that's like an oil reference. You guys do refineries or oil schematics. No, we here at Pipeline, we don't do pipelines. It is a reference to a very famous surfing spot on the north shore of Oahu called Banzai Pipeline, which it was always the pinnacle of surf, as I was growing up. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if my engineering company was the pinnacle Council of
Oh,
Engineering.
nice.
That's where
Yeah.
the name of the company came from.
That's awesome. That's really fascinating. I used to be like very into surfing, which was odd because I was living in Arkansas in a landlocked state, but like to the point where I like convinced my parents I had like two like these little fake palm trees in my room and kind of like the Hawaiian floral bedspread. And
Nice.
I even like wrote into like Billabong, Hurley, Rusty, like all
Really?
the different places and like wrote them like handwritten letters back, this is back in the day. I don't even know if email was a thing back then. And I was like, hey, I'm landlocked. Like, I was subscribed to Surfer Magazine, all that stuff. I was like, if you have any defective product or stickers you can send me. And like to a person, like each one of the letters I sent out, like somebody got it and was like, wrote us back. They're like, we can't ship you any product, but like, here's a bunch of stickers. And I literally put them all over my window mirror in my room. So like, I used to be obsessed with, I mean, I'd still like, I've only done it a couple times. It's awesome. It's so much harder than it looks. You know what I mean?
That's
But
so
yeah.
cool that you actually got something back from those
Yeah.
companies. They took the time to send you some stickers and stuff. I'm in Arizona, right? So there's not a lot of surf here, although they did just open a surf park, like a pretty legit surf park
Oh yeah.
down in Mesa, which is also just outside of Phoenix. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's like that big, like circular donut that just like pulses down. You know
I
what I mean?
wish. I wish. Yeah,
Oh,
that one
yeah.
is Surf Lakes. That's the company that made
Yeah.
that one. And that, in my opinion, is the best man-made
Yeah.
wave that exists. But that's not the one they built out here in Mesa. It's a little bit different. They use a bunch of hydraulic actuators to, like, all in parallel, probably 20 of them, pushing down at the same time to create
Oh
a
wow.
wave. And then the bottom is contoured in such a way that there's a
That's
little
cool.
A-frame that breaks out left and right. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So pipeline, like I want to. There's some other like specific questions I want to ask you about it, but like you were saying, building, you guys build custom machines. You know what I mean? And I think like there's probably some people in the audience that are like custom machines and custom fixtures. Maybe that's not like fully landing for them. You know what I mean in terms of what that means. So describe more. Pick an example or two or whatever. But like custom machines, custom fixtures. I know you mentioned some automation stuff or some testing fixtures and things like that. Like kind of visualize for people in the audience what types of equipment you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll bookend it in terms of complexity. So on the very basic, simple end, there's just fixtures, like manual fixtures, no motion or automation about them, little desktop things. One of the fixtures we did on that side of the spectrum, all it did was remove the plastic side covers of a medical device. This was for a reprocessing company, medical device reprocessing company, and they needed a way without cosmetically damaging these plastic side covers of the device. They needed a way to remove them, and so we just came up with this little fixture where you put the assembled handle in a nest, and there were these little like thin claws that kind of pressed in just a little bit, like maybe 10, 20 thousandths of an inch to the reveal around those two side covers, and then they're spring loaded, and you kind of just punch these plungers down, and they pop off the side cover, and that's all it did. And that's all they wanted it to do. So on the very basic end, fixtures that do a variety of different things: disassembly, inspection, cycle testing, whatever. Actually, cycle testing would be more on the automated side. So on the other end of that spectrum, like the fully automated industrial controls machines, we did one recently. In fact, we just delivered a second one to this customer. They had a electromechanical device, pretty sophisticated, that was having some failures in the field. And this is a mission critical device that law enforcement uses. So you can imagine that, like, if you're a law enforcement officer and you're using this device to try and subdue a criminal, someone that's dangerous, and it fails, that's a big deal, right? That is no bueno. So that happened. I don't know how many times, but enough that the company said, okay, this is a problem. We need to find a solution for it. And what they learned was that the root cause of the failures that they were seeing in the field was operators weren't dispensing glue in either sufficient volumes or in the correct places to hold these side covers in place. And so they said, all right, we need to build a machine that does this the same way and the correct way every single time. And that's where we came in. So we built this machine that did material handling. It would pick up the side covers. It would place both of them underneath glue dispensers. There were on each side there was an X, Y, and Z motor axes that would move them around in X, Y, and Z as the glue was dispensed, and then it would assemble them onto the electromechanical chassis. Oh, and before the assembly step, there was live vision inspection going on with some Keyence cameras that were mounted up above, looking straight down onto the glue that was being dispensed onto these side covers. There was some barcode scanning in there as well, interface with the customer's
ERP or whatever.
ERP, MES, ERP, whatever it was. And so that's kind of like the opposite. This was maybe I don't know, print was probably like 5 feet by 4 feet or so, and probably like 7 feet tall. And there's a SCARA robot in it, and vision, and 6 motors, and a bunch of pneumatics and things like that.
That's awesome. No, that was really, really good. Yeah, I mean, and there's to a degree, like I feel like for probably a lot of this stuff, if not all of it, like you could do this by hand, but the speed that you could do it, and then like the verification and fidelity of like, you're going to this exact amount of glue and you're affixing it with this exact amount of pressure, etc. Like you're just not going to be able to replicate that.
Yeah.
And I've seen when we had a product line at our manufacturing facility, and they were like really great with automation, but like it is truly, once you get it kind of installed into the assembly line or like a fully automated cell, like it feels like magic when everything's like working as intended and you're cranking out a couple of these parts a minute. It's just nothing short of awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So one thing, I know that, just from talking to you before, and then some of your website, et cetera, you guys, culture's a really big deal. And like one kind of radical idea, in terms of company purpose that you talk about is, promoting joy in team members' lives as like the highest purpose, right? So what does that look like in practice? I'm curious to say that. And then like, do you believe, or have evidence that it like actually translates to better engineering outcomes, better project completion, et cetera?
Yeah. So we have some core values that we follow. I think most companies have core values. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you asked the employees at most of these companies what the core values are and what they mean to the employee, probably most of them would say, I'm not sure, I don't remember what they are, and they don't mean much to me. I like to think that it's different here at Pipeline. We have 4 core values, and we actually make decisions based on these core values. We talk about them frequently. We have monthly core value nominations where we look for team members who are living those core values, not just from leadership, but like anyone on the team can nominate someone else on the team for core values, and they do. We typically have, I don't know, maybe a dozen nominations per month, something like that. And there's a little prize, for that person at the end. Core value number 1, which arguably is the most important of our 4 core values, is treat our customers well, but treat our team members better. Mm-hmm. And a customer walked into our office one day, this is a few years ago, and the core values are like this huge mural right in the front. So you walk in, that's what you see. And he kind of cocked his head at core value number 1. It was like, I think that's wrong. Like, shouldn't you treat your customers best, the employees, the team members? And my opinion is that the best way to treat your customers well is to make sure your team is really happy doing what they're doing. Yeah. I mean, if you're a customer, would you rather have an engineer who's just showing up for a paycheck working on your project, or an engineer who really is finding joy in what he or she is doing at that company and like is engaged in the work, right? For me, all day long, I want that second engineer that's finding joy in what he or she is doing. So we do a few other things to underscore those core values, one of which is just interaction between the whole team. I think it's really important that the team like communicate with each other, right? And they aren't siloed. And so every day there's something that we do where the whole team is there. On Monday, we do something called Launchpad, which the team gets together and talks about what were the wins individually from last week and what are you trying to accomplish this week. And then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have a morning huddle that lasts for like 10 minutes. And we just talk about, again, we go through each team member and they talk about, this is what I've got on my plate today. This is what I'm trying to accomplish today. And then Wednesday, we have a weekly team meeting where we do a short skills presentation. We talk about one of our standards. We got all these standard documents, and sometimes it's hard to remember all the different standard documents out there. So a team member chooses one and just really briefly talks about it. And then there's a skills, or I think I talked about that, lessons learned as well. So we have all these ways that like facilitate connecting with
Mm-hmm.
one another. And we'll occasionally do like a company event, but honestly, I think the company events don't do nearly as much as those little
Yeah.
daily reminders. That's where the bulk of the culture happens. Also, I think culture really it stems from the top, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As the leader, you need to be demonstrating the culture that you want to promote within the organization. So you asked, does it actually matter, right? Does the culture actually lead
Mm-hmm.
to tangible business results? We had an experience a few years ago. We were a little light on work at that time, and we had a really big opportunity that was presented to us from one of our customers, and they needed two machines built. Like one of them was a retrofit, so we needed to upgrade this machine, and then the other one was starting with a blank sheet of paper, bottom up, ground up design and build,
Mm-hmm.
and which is great, right? But they needed them in, I can't remember now if it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks, which is an insanely short amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
even for one of these, let alone both of them. And again, we were a little light on work, right? So like, this was great. This was a boon for the company, but I knew that there was no way we would finish these in that time frame unless the team worked a bunch of nights and weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have approached everyone and said, all right, listen up. This is what we're doing for
Yeah.
the next 8-10 weeks. Tell your loved ones you're not going to see them much because we need you here working nights and weekends in
Yeah.
order to fulfill this order. I think engagement is really important from your team. Enrollment, like they need to enroll themselves, right? So I could have done that, but it would have taken away their agency. And I
Yeah.
don't think they would have been as enrolled in the plan. So what I did was I approached them. I said, hey, we've got this great opportunity, two machines that we're going to build, good money, and they need it done in 10 weeks. So I think the only way we're going to do that is if people are willing to do nights and weekends work. You guys tell me, are you willing to sign up for that? And I made it very clear that, hey, if the answer is no, I understand. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to force anyone to do this. Literally, legitimately, you guys tell me if you're willing to do this. And if you are, great. And if you're not, that's okay too. We'll figure something out. To their credit, the whole team was like, yeah, we're in, sign us up. We understand what is going to be required of us and we're in. So I said, great. Told the customer, got the PO, started working on it. And what was so amazing was that over those 10 weeks, not once did management need to step in and be like, hey, you guys aren't working enough. You need to be here later at night. You need to be here on the weekend. None of that happened. Everyone managed themselves, and for sure people were staying late and they were working on the weekends sometimes, but everyone just did what was needed of them. Like leadership did not ever have to step in and point the finger, wag the finger and say, we need more from you.
Yeah.
And we did it. We got everything done in time and delivered it, and the customer was happy and we were happy. And so I think the only reason that happened is because we have this really wonderful and I think very unique culture at Pipeline where people enjoy working with each other. They help each other. They support each other. They look for opportunities to lend a hand. And so everyone just came together and did what needed to be done.
Yeah, that's a great like case study. I mean, like it's something is like sticking out in my mind, hearing you talk through all that. Like there's a lot of things that I would almost consider like phenotypical elements of culture. And I think like the Mondays we do the launch pad and then Tuesdays we do this. Like those are things that have like you could see them, right? Like you could walk into your office and see you guys doing that activity. You could see it on a calendar, on a schedule, etc. But then there's like the genotypical elements of culture, like what you were saying. It starts at the top. It's how you handle conflict. It's how approachable people are, how tough conversations and tough decisions are made, and who's making them, right? And around what set of facts, egos, just communication, openness, all that stuff. Is there fear? Or is there collaboration? Like all of that, like if you walked into your office, it'd be hard to see that. It'd be hard to figure out or ask someone about it. But like you're there long enough, you understand it's a part of the DNA. So I would say like for even, for the audience, like people, maybe you're a cog in the wheel at a big firm. Maybe you're, sole founder, so, maybe you're leading a small team or whatever. Obviously the things that you do on that, like almost like genotypical side of like leading by example are super important. But like seriously, do not discount those things, like, weekly events, check-ins, one-on-ones, the things that are like recurring that, put people together and put people in situations where you can really influence the culture in the way you want. And like sometimes they seem trivial, and they kind of are, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like it gives you an opportunity as like a business leader to like really mold and make things, how you want them to be, and if there's changes that need to be made, right? It gives you an opportunity to like in a low stress or low friction way, like recommend things or, hit on points of emphasis. Like if you're never seeing your team unless it's a meeting that is for like a very specific topic, like it kind of becomes more difficult to like then like, make small, fine adjustments. You're making these big course adjustments later because, hey, come to my office. I need to talk to you about something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's really difficult to understand what's actually happening with your team unless you're there, at least sometimes in person. And I don't believe that 100% in person is required. I think there's a hybrid approach, which is what we do, that works really well. But especially as a leader, if you're not there in person, at least some of the time, you miss things that happen that you really should be aware of. Just little conversations, fly on the wall type of things. There was a time when we had just moved into a new building and we had this big warehouse where all of our builds were happening. And someone brought food into the warehouse where builds were happening, right? And our director of engineering, understandably, took the person aside and said, hey, we really shouldn't have food in here because we're like building equipment. And I just happened to be around, and it wasn't a big deal. I mean, there was calm, low-key, heads up, you probably shouldn't have food in here. It wasn't a big deal. But I witnessed this interaction take place, and I thought, what is the protocol for this? And what do we really care about? And it led to like a team-wide discussion about food in the warehouse, and drink in the warehouse, and like, is it allowed? Is it not allowed? And at Pipeline, again, we have this really wonderful culture where there's not a lot of like rules or protocols. People kind of just do what needs to be done. For example, purchasing. There is no formal approval process for purchasing things. When an engineer needs to buy something for a project, they go on to McMaster, they go on to Amazon, they go over wherever it is, and they buy that thing. And that's how we've been operating for 15 years, and it just has never been a problem. So the idea of like rules and procedures, I mean, you need a certain extent. Don't get me wrong, but I push back on them wherever I can, and I prefer to think about what do we really care about here. So going back to the warehouse, we thought, what do we really care about? Do we care that people are eating in the warehouse or have drink? Not really. Like that itself, we don't care about that. But if they are doing that, maybe the machines get contaminated. Okay, we do care about that. Or maybe the food that the team member is eating gets contaminated by, oil from a machine. We do care about that. How about a customer coming in and seeing people eating in the warehouse next to machines being built? We care about that perception as well. So we identified the things that we really did care about, and we call these our guiding principles, right? Mm-hmm. The whys in all the way in the background. And then, so we actually have this mural now in our warehouse with guiding principles. And like, it's very clearly stated, this is what we care about. Make sure these things are being upheld. And then some people do like rules. Like they want to be told exactly what to do, what not to do. Not everyone, but some people. So we came up with supporting behaviors, we call them. And underneath the guiding principles, we have supporting behaviors. And one of those is like, don't eat food in the warehouse. But we're also very clear on, if you need to circumvent a supporting behavior in support of a guiding principle, great. You're empowered to do that.
Yeah.
I don't care if you follow the supporting behaviors. As long as you're upholding those guiding principles, that's all we really care about at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting.
I never would have, like, that conversation probably never would have happened if I hadn't just been there at the right time to observe this little conversation that happened.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, like, even just to the point about, like, the purchasing and, like, prior authorization for whatever, like, I was just talking to somebody, and they were like, basically they manage and run the warehouse and orders and fulfillment for like a $20 million business. And they were basically saying that like they have it, set up to where like any purchase has to get like approved by, some person, and it's like, they may not get to it for a while. And like, they were just talking about like, if I can need something small, like you're saying, like off Amazon or something, and whether it's like, oh, we need a new label maker because this one broke or something like that. And like, it may not seem like a big deal, but like the 72 hours or whatever where you don't have that, and it's like, hey, why aren't these orders going out? And it's like, well, I had to put in a $94 approved, slip for this purchase. Right. And it's just like that really is helping no one. Like, it's really not helping the business. And if you've got people that know what they're supposed to be doing, guiding principles and behavior, and there's like a culture of trust there, then they just need to be able to do that, right? Because it moves the business forward. So to that point about, I think one of your, company values is around governed by productivity, not bureaucracy, right? And you're kind of touching all around that. So it a little bit almost like counterintuitive, right? Like an engineering firm, like you got to imagine there's a lot of process, and to a degree, a lot of engineering firms are probably drowning in that process. So, and I guess you touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else I'd say that you could hit on with this? But like, how do you maintain quality and compliance and repeatability, right, in kind of the medical device field, right? And you guys aren't making medical devices, but you're making things that are used for testing medical devices. So the rigor and the consistency has to be there, right? So how do you maintain that quality and compliance without becoming, overly bureaucratic in itself?
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's something that requires discussion and thought. It doesn't just happen automatically. And there's always that push and pull, right? And we're always struggling to find just the right balance, which I think we've done a pretty good job of to date. Also, to be fair, we're a pretty small team. There are, a dozen of us plus a few contractors. And so it's not that difficult for everyone to know what everyone is doing. And if we were a much bigger team, hundreds or thousands of people, by necessity, we might have to have a little more complexity, more procedures, things like that.
I'll call it like the 10 to 15 zone is like such an awesome size for a company, because like you really still do know, it's easy to know almost everything that's going on with everybody, and like not even like in a micromanaging sense, but just like on a personal sense, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on with everybody. You're there's not so many projects going on all at once that you get like things get lost in the shuffle. Like that size, that zone is really key. And then like once you start to get outside of that, that's like, I feel like whenever it's like, okay, we really do need some like more written, or when you're hiring really fast, you know what I mean? Like that, those are when you got to have those things like a little bit more, dialed in, because you may not be able to afford, for it to take a new batch of 8 hires 6 months to absorb a lot of this principles and policies and things like that, right? So one thing I know, that you're, and again, you kind of touched on this, but like around communication and soft skills, like I know that you've been, an advocate for this, that like communication skills matter as much as technical skills for engineers. Like I totally agree with that. Like I think, and I wouldn't even say engineers in my view. It's just like communication skills are like everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's so important for so many things. But a lot of engineers struggle with communication, and even some that would just prefer not to do it. They're just like, I don't want to have to publicly speak. I don't want to have to present, et cetera, et cetera. So like how much of, kind of your process is like convincing, brilliant, maybe introverted engineers that like, hey, like you really do need to become a communicator to advance your career? And then like, is there anything that you think you guys do like uniquely to help facilitate that?
I think a lot of it comes down to the individual. We've had people on the team in the past who are not great communicators, and we've worked with them, spent a lot of time trying to help them. And some of them, for whatever reason, they just don't really improve, and they're no longer at Pipeline. So I think there's only so much that you can train into a person, but there is some that you can train into a person. I remember I mentioned our weekly team meeting.
Yeah.
One of the presentations that we do regularly, and these are short presentations, 5 minutes, maybe 10, is a skills presentation. And so oftentimes I'll talk about communication or soft skills, because I feel like that's where I'm best. And one of the things I've done for, I guess you could call it informal training, is I'm often copied on emails that our engineers send to vendors. And I'll usually read through them briefly. And there have been, several instances where I noticed words that the engineer used weren't very specific or clear. For example, an engineer sent a vendor an email and just said, "Hey, what's going on with our parts?" Or like, what's the status of our parts? And I remember thinking, that's not really what we care about right now. I knew the situation in the background. what we really cared about was, when are they going to be delivered?
Yeah.
And I took that email, and there have been others like this. And I put it into a little PowerPoint, and I just talked to the team member first and say, hey, is it okay if I use this as like kind of an example of what not to do?
Yeah.
And share it with the team. And if they agree to it, I was like, great. Then I'll share it with the team, and I'll just say, hey, what would be a better way to phrase this? And we have some discussion in the team. And usually it comes down to just being very clear on like timing, as opposed to what's going on with our parts. Maybe a better way to say that was, hey, we're really hoping to get our parts by 3 p.m. Next Tuesday, the 16th. Are we on track for that? Things like that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, it's like striking me a little bit, like how much a lot of like your approach is like, what do we really care about here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is it's like really interesting, and it's a very, very simple idea, but like it has like, there's like a pervasiveness to it and like almost like a universality to it, where it's like, what do we really care about here with this policy or with this communication or whatever? Like, I've not heard it been put like that succinctly as like kind of a guiding light for a lot of things. But honestly, it makes so much sense. Like, it's just like, what do we really care about here? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think you have to have the core values and, the purpose, those things to define what you really care about. And then it becomes much easier for team members to make their own decisions about what to do and what not to do.
Yeah. And it kind of cuts through too. It's like, it's like, okay, there's a lot of chaff and noise here. It's kind of just like signal. It's like, what's really motivating this? You know what I mean? Like, what's almost like the driver? Like, I like that a lot. And on the communication piece, like more broadly, I was talking to Jeremy Ridley, who is like the director of mechanical engineering at Delve. And they're like a pretty large shop, and they recently acquired another group. So I think they're like over 120, and they've got a really big team specifically that just Jeremy manages. But I was talking to him about, I think it was about like clients, like how to be a great client, or what types of clients do you love working with, et cetera. And he was talking about the big differences if they have a glue guy or not, where glue guy, glue gal. But the point he was making was that like they can translate, from a communication standpoint, translate engineering things into clinical things, into business things. And like, if you're a really talented engineer, like there's no doubt that you have the brain power and the intellect to be able to understand those non-engineering elements. It's really just about, can you communicate and articulate those and connect the dots in reverse and get that message across. And so like, without that communication skill, like you can't be like a glue guy, you're a glue girl. You know what I'm saying? Like so I think the communication piece is huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many times like this is probably bad, but like you'll like interview for an engineering role, and then you're like, yeah, and they actually can communicate really well. It's like a surprising, X factor for them. It's like, well, they're an engineer, but they don't talk like an engineer. You know what I mean? They pass the beer test like right out of the gate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember, speaking of interviews, I interviewed this guy years ago, and it was a phone interview. And as soon as we started talking, he just kind of monopolized the conversation and took over. And I kept waiting for like a break or a pause so that I could ask a question, right? I mean, that's kind of the point of an interview. I ask you questions, and you give me answers. And this guy just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. Yeah. And it's at a certain point, I thought to myself, I already can tell that this guy is not a good fit for our company. But I'm so intrigued now to know, how long is he going to talk before he stops? And so I just sat there and listened and thought to myself, I'm just going to like time this and see how long it goes for fun. And this guy talked for 20 minutes nonstop, answering any particular question that I had asked him. I don't even remember what he was talking about.
Just free associating.
Basically, yeah. I remember thinking to myself, man, this guy has no clue how to communicate with another human being.
Yeah.
Shocker, I did not hire this person.
Yeah. No, I've gone back to this like ism so many times. And like, honestly, it's something like I feel like I have to like repeatedly check in with myself about, but it's just the concept of, inquiring more than you advocate in like any conversation. And of course, we're on a podcast, right? I'm asking you questions. You're supposed to talk more. That's like the whole point, right? But so it's like very situation dependent. But I would say the majority of conversations, if you can be inquiring more than you're advocating, asking the other person to, dive deeper. How do you arrive at that conclusion? Help me understand this. What did you think about this? What was your experience with this? Like, you're going to get more information out of it. They're going to feel more fulfilled in the conversation. And like, you can leave it like that, and they're going to have a really positive experience, and you gained more. You know what I mean? mean? Because you got more information than you shared. And I think like that, if you're an extroverted person, especially if you enjoy communicating, enjoy talking, and you're an extroverted person, like you're going to like have a tendency to fall into that. But when you do that, you're listening to someone when you're just thinking about what you want to say and what you want to advocate for is totally different when you're listening with ears to inquire, because you're listening for things to probe on and you're really absorbing a lot more of it too. So it even changes the way you listen, let alone kind of the timestamp of when you start talking. You know what I mean? But that's something that I try to practice myself, and I'm, imperfect at it for sure. But it's also something like, especially when I'm mentoring like, like kind of younger founders and things like that. Like if I notice that type of behavior, I'm like, hey, like, it'll be like a mentor call or something. And I'm like, hey, like you came to this call to get mentorship from me. And I've said like 4 words, right? You know what I mean? Like what are they getting out of that? Right. It's, so and again, it's something I struggle with from time to time, is like being an excitable and extroverted person. But I think it's important to think about, like, you don't want to be, on a call and then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't shut up that whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a balance. And like you said, it's situational. I love your point about asking questions. I think that's so important. I remember, and I've had this experience with different people many times, but this one kind of stood out to me. I went out to dinner with a customer of ours and his wife. We had kind of become friends at this point. And so it was me and my wife and him and his wife. We went out to dinner. This may have been the first time that I had met his wife. And I just asked her questions about herself. I have no idea what the conversation was about at this point, but she was telling me she was into writing, and so I was just asking her questions about that. And that's all I did. I didn't say anything about myself. I just asked her questions about this, whatever the interest was. And at a certain point, maybe 10, 15 minutes into it, she was sitting in the front seat. I was in the back seat. She turned around and she looks at me and she says, "You ask such wonderful questions." And she was delighted that someone just wanted to hear about her, right?
Yeah.
Just asked her questions. And I've had, again, that experience, over and over with different people.
Yeah.
But people they're just delighted that someone is interested in them and asking them questions. People love to talk. So just give people an opportunity to talk, and they will reciprocate that in many different ways.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So I want to make sure like we get some time to talk about all of the awesome, I'll say, apparatus ecosystem that you've built around pipeline, kind of the core pipeline business. You guys have, like, you've got a podcast that I think you're on episode, I don't even know, but it's like you guys have been doing it for a long time and it's awesome. And so I want you to be able to kind of plug all of this in each one of these, but like the podcast, there's, the Wave platform, the CAD Club, and then you've got PDX, the event. We'll save the event. We'll give that a little bit more time at the end. But like these are, for an engineering services company, a lot of plates to spin, right? Doing like community and podcast, CAD Club, and all of this stuff. But talk to me about how you view that in terms of like, this mission-driven empire, that you're building. Or maybe you're just, bad at saying no to good ideas. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, tell us more about it.
Yeah, there's probably some of that, the latter there as well. I love that you use the word empire, because the way I think of it is we're building an engineering empire here, even though we're a really small team, right? It's not like we have dedicated teams or business units that are focusing on each one of these things. I don't do a lot of engineering anymore, but I'm the one driving all of these different community efforts, these, we call them extracurricular activities, so to speak. And then, of course, team members at Pipeline help a lot as well. I could never, sometimes people ask me like, when do you sleep? I don't understand. You do so much. And I'm like, I work, 45 to 50 hours a week. It's a little bit more than like your normal 40 hours, but I'm not putting in 60, 80, 100-hour weeks. And it's because I've got these wonderful team members who are very good at what they do and very supportive. So the extracurricular activities, we've got CAD Club. This is our volunteer organization where once a week we open our doors to middle school and high school students in the area, and we teach them how to use CAD and life skills. And going back to the whole purpose, what are we really trying to do here? CAD Club is really not about teaching CAD or engineering. It's about imparting life skills to these students. A quick story about where CAD Club came from. Several years ago, my oldest son, was a freshman in high school, and my wife works in the front office of this same high school. And one day, unfortunately, they got a call from a parent, and this parent says, "Hey, my son is on the way to your school. Pretty sure he has a gun with him and is looking for a specific student. And so they called the police right away. The whole school, the high school, went on lockdown immediately, right? Very quickly, there were armed law enforcement officers, like assault rifle armed law enforcement officers around the perimeter of the school. There was a police helicopter flying overhead, right? They were looking for this kid. Luckily, they found him. They found this kid before he entered the campus. He did have a gun with him, but crisis averted, right? They
Yeah.
found him, and everything turned out okay in the end, thankfully. But I remember thinking to myself, man, what makes a kid so angry that he's willing to harm one of his peers? And I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was some small thing that we could do as a company to like prevent this kind of behavior? And again, a small footprint here, right? So like there's only so
Yeah.
much we can do, but I thought, well, we know CAD and we know engineering, and there are probably kids out there who would be interested in learning those things. So maybe we can do this volunteer organization called CAD Club, and we'll invite these students in. But really, the purpose of CAD Club is to help kids understand what healthy adult behavior looks like. And at the end of the day, if they don't learn anything about CAD or engineering, but they walk away with some good life skills, right? And a better understanding of what a healthy adult looks like in our society, that's a win for me.
Yeah.
So that's CAD Club. And there have been some really special experiences that we've had where we've seen that, yeah, that is actually the case. They're leaving CAD Club with life tools that they
Yeah.
didn't have before. And then there's the podcast, the Being an Engineer podcast. And we are on season 6 of the podcast. I think we've got somewhere over 300 episodes at this point. It's a weekly. We release a new episode each week. We've had some really cool guests on. We're having this guy Spencer pretty soon. And that's going
I
to
was
be
about to
that's
say
going to be amazing.
you're gonna have another cool guest soon.
Yeah. But we've had like John Herstick, who is the founder of SolidWorks and now Onshape.
Oh,
He was a
wow.
guest. Oh shoot, his name is escaping me now, but the current CEO of SolidWorks, he was a guest a little while ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had this guy, James Hobson, who is known as the Hacksmith on YouTube. He's got like 12 million followers or subscribers on YouTube, and just does these really cool projects where he takes science fiction and makes them real. Like he's got like the Batman grappling hook or something, and
Yeah.
they've built lightsabers. And
I've
just,
seen
you know,
him. I've seen him. Yeah.
yeah,
He's awesome.
so but we've had some just really delightful engineers and people on the show, and it continues to be a great way to get to know others in the engineering community. And then there's the wave.engineer, and this is a free community website for engineers. We've got all kinds of cool, interesting, useful things there. With their forums, there are a bunch of articles about engineering, about leadership, things like that. There are what we call design accelerators, and these are little CAD. It's kind of like low code in the software world, but applied to CAD design, where they're pre-designed like little widgets that you can just download and plug into your assembly and use right away. And they typically come with drawings, manufacturing drawings. So unlike GrabCAD, where like a lot of students creating things that look like the thing, but you would never use GrabCAD files to like manufacture something. This is the opposite. Like you can actually manufacture parts to the drawings and CAD models. So there's Design Accelerator CAD downloads. There's a mentoring page where senior level engineers, there maybe, 10 of them signed up right now, who have expressed interest in being mentors to younger engineers. Now, these younger engineers, they can go to that page and find one that looks relevant to what they're trying to do and just reach out directly. And a lot of mentoring relationships have been created through that page. There's a portfolio page where if you want to share multimedia pictures, videos of things that you've done in the past as part of your portfolio/resume when you're approaching a prospective new employer, you can do that there. There's some other things as well, but lots of content and tools on the wave.engineer. And then last of all, there's PDX. I don't know if you want to get into that now or
Would please, I just want to make sure we had like some like time. It's an awesome event. Yeah, go ahead, take it away.
So PDX stands for the Product Development Expo, and it is a 2-day training boot camp for hardware engineers. So if you're in product design, or you're a mechanical engineer, manufacturing engineer, even electrical engineer, process engineer, biomedical engineer, all of those kinds of role titles, this is for you. A 2-day event, October 21st and 22nd here just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. We've rented out an entire convention center, and we have this is not a pipeline event. This is an industry event that Pipeline is organizing. And we have brought in, I think we have just over 30 as of right now, and we'll probably get a handful more before the event, but industry experts, right, in one subject or another. Things like GD&T or project management or advanced CAD modeling, scanning and reverse engineering, glue dispensing, vision inspection, metrology, right? All of these different topics that are relevant to engineers developing physical products. And they will be putting on training sessions at the event. They're crash course, short 30 to 60 minute training sessions. So if you wanted to get crash course on legitimately, you could probably hit up 8 or 10 or even 12 of these training sessions, fly in, hit up the training sessions that are relevant to the work that you're doing, and then go home with all this new knowledge and also introductions, right? You're going to meet a lot of people there, fellow engineers as well as vendors, things like that, outside of those formal training sessions, because they don't last all day for every vendor. We're doing what's called office hours. And so we're encouraging engineers to come with their real actual problems that they're trying to solve in their current projects. And just again, we'll have over 30 experts in all these different fields of engineering just approach them and say, hey, here's the problem I have. Maybe you have to sanitize it a little bit for confidentiality, but you'll get like live consulting from industry experts on all of these different topics.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. That kind of collaborative, collective genius I just love seeing that, obviously. It's fantastic. I want to talk about like AI a little bit while we've got a little bit more time left here. We'll start like kind of high level organizationally with Pipeline. Like what is your kind of organizational and leadership stance on AI kind of with your employees and team members, et cetera? Like how are you guys thinking about it? From a guidance and policy perspective, thinking about it, but then also like the implementation, like, are you mandating it? Is it somewhere, something less than mandated, et cetera? I'm just curious.
Yeah. It goes back to core value number 2, governed by productivity, not bureaucracy. And so we don't have any kind of company mandate that says you must use AI or you must not use AI. We have a team chat GPT account, and we tell everyone if you can be more productive using AI, then, without breaching any kind of confidentiality thing, or then by all means use it. And I've been using it heavily. One of the great ways I've been using it is in the quoting process. And so we use Microsoft Teams, but pretty much any web meeting software out there does this these days. I'll turn on the transcribe button whenever we have a Teams meeting. So we have a customer with a new project that they want to talk to us about. I just record the transcription of that discussion where we're talking about the scope of work, requirements, things like that. And then afterwards, I have a specific GPT projects. If you're not familiar with Chat GPT, it's very easy to create one of these projects within the interface, and you can give it some, general guidance about what the purpose of that project is. But I'll just dump the transcript into this project and say, all right, give me a summary of like the key points of discussion and action items that were discussed during the call, any critical decisions that were made, things like that. And it'll, give me this really wonderful summary. And then I'll take a lot of that and just put it into a PowerPoint. And next meeting we have with the customer, I'll be like, all right, this is what I understand that you want. Here are the requirements. Here's the impact it's going to have on your business. Does this sound correct to you? And it's kind of been amazing, actually. It doesn't seem like that big a deal, but the customers will be like, oh my gosh, you guys actually listened. This is exactly what we talked about. It's so clear to us now that you really understand what the problem is and what needs to happen. And it's helped us win business that we may not have otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, not only, and I very similar use cases, like I use it like that, but like not only are you not, there's less stuff that slips through the cracks, but you're able to turn that around so much faster than, maybe they had 2 meetings that week. Your competitor was on Tuesday, yours was on Thursday, and then Friday they've already got this from you, and they're still waiting on just a recap email from the other group. You know what I mean? Yep. No, I think that's a great use case for it, and like almost like I think you can do this. There's a couple different ways to do this, and some of the platforms like actually have skills in essence where you can run kind of train and run a skill, which in another word is just take a certain data set or transcript and then run a specific prompt prompt on it with a specific output that you want, right? But like having those kind of post-meeting skills and workflows that you just like run and execute are like so helpful. I wanted to ask if you guys, it's like bananas. It's like, have you guys heard of this? It's so it's like a CAD and product development management software. You should, I think you guys would find it interesting. I mean, I don't use it. I saw it at MD&M this past year, but it's basically when you're looking at it, it looks like you're looking at a part print. You know what I mean? But you can do specific things with like annotations, version control changes, like commenting. And then there's like an AI element too that can like summarize all the things that have happened in this person's done or that version history or this thing. But it's basically like trying to use some intelligent collaboration and workflow visibility. But yeah, I was just curious. The software looks gorgeous. Like like when you look at it, you're like, man, this seems really cool. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate nice aesthetics. I mean, that's a big deal for me.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You may have done this already. I don't know, but I was just thinking that you should do an episode about all these different tools that you found. Because last time we talked, man, you gave me like 8 different tools that I didn't even know existed. And you're already like so proficient with all of these. And that would be a really great episode.
I know. I really do need to do one, like just like an AI workflow, like videos type thing. Yeah. But no, like to your point though, like aesthetics, you were saying aesthetics really matter with like software and like, yeah, like good design always matters. But I am bullish on this, but I think, UI, UX, aesthetics, etc. it's already really, really important. It is about to become so important that it's almost the only thing that matters, because in a world with low code, no code IDE tools, you can build anything. Anyone can build anything, right? Like perfect example, that kid that built DocuSign just rebuilt it, called like Documenso or something. And it is just exactly the same as DocuSign. You know what I mean? So what separates, I want to use DocuSign or I want to use Documenso, and there could be some like, maybe it's some HIPAA compliant thing or whatever, but assuming it is exactly the same, there's pricing and then there's UI UX. Does it feel as good? Do I like using it? Does it have this workflow integration that I like from a usability perspective? And I think you're going to see that same thing start to just kneecap these like legacy software providers and SaaS platforms, because people are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to pay more, and I'm just going to choose the one, and maybe even if it's the price the same, I'm going to choose the one that's more usable and that has like a better UI UX for me. So I think distribution and UI those are king, right? Can you make it that's the best usable, and can you get it to the most eyeballs with your distribution channel? Like whether that's you personally as a creator, influencer, or whatever channels that you decide to do. But I'm just really bullish upon that, because like we are really in a point where like in a weekend, or depending on the project, in a month, you can spin up something that can compete with, like I'm sure there's someone out there that's got a QuickBooks competitor that's going to start eating their lunch because no one likes using QuickBooks.
Yeah, I think design is really important, especially there are a lot of products out there that are good. And I'm thinking about engineering tools right now, but the design kind of sucks, right? Yeah. Like it doesn't spark joy in me to look at this thing or use this thing. Like it's functional, but I won't name the company name, but I recently saw a tool from an engineering company and it does the thing it's supposed to do, but it just looks like garbage. And I would happily pay more for something that does the same exact functionality, but just looks a little better.
No, I'm totally with you. So maybe last question here, and then I'll kind of let you wrap it up and like plug anything that you want to plug, etc. But like no wrong answer, open-ended question here. I have lately, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, been like a little frustrated with the medtech world in terms of like just the process by which almost every medtech company has to go through the funding, do this, and then grovel to these VCs, and that whole cycle, and how expensive it is, and how much money it costs, who you have to go beg for money to, and then like what that sets you up for in terms of company could sell for 30 million and you didn't make a dime. You know what I mean? And there's actually some of that on the tech side you're saying with like Windsurf, and there was some acquisition and a lot of the employees are basically not going to get any money. But anyways, all that to say, like, ask this question, like, have you thought, are there models in your mind for innovation models or venture studio models or sprints more on the hardware side, right? Like, are there different models that you think could work, would like to see explored for like medical device, specifically on the hardware, like connected device, even in that landscape, because it feels like we're in this archaic VC underpinned model, and I'm like, it's either breaking or it's gonna break. It's just not serving the innovators and the clinicians well.
I don't think I have a great answer for you there. The one thought that does come to mind was, I think it was from this book called Small Giants. And it was about companies who could have blown up and been huge, but chose to remain small and great, as opposed to gigantic and mediocre.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what the company was, but one of the companies, the case studies in this book, had the opportunity to get much, much bigger. And instead of just becoming this behemoth company, what they did was they maintained small teams. So they had teams of like 5 or 6 people, and they almost broke them out all into like their own miniature company within the umbrella of the parent organization. And so instead of like this bigger company with lots of bureaucracy, right? The more people that have to be managed in an organization, the more bureaucracy creeps in, sometimes by necessity. They had these little small pods of almost like individual teams. And there was a little bit of collaboration going on where it made sense, but mostly it was these small teams working together. And we talked about team size before. I think there's a lot of efficiency in small teams where everyone kind of knows what everyone else is doing. So I think that's a really interesting model, that as a company grows, instead of just growing with lots of people, figuring out how to maintain small teams that work pretty autonomously and independently within the organization so that they can move fast. But when they need more support, the parent company is there to provide that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think so Cook had like a Regentech spin out that was like a more nimble organization underneath the Cook umbrella that like operated a little bit more independently. And shout out to Brad Shirley. He's an XO member that used to work there. But it sounds like almost similar in a sense, because they realized that we can't move as fast as we want to if this stays within Cook. And so they would have the Regentech arm do things where they needed to be more nimble and move quicker and work on projects that maybe traditional Cook wasn't going to take on for whatever reason. No, but I like that. I've been like trying to think about like if you structured almost like an accelerator program, but I don't even think it would be 13 weeks. I think it could literally be like 6 weeks. But having the ability to have in-house, and not just access to, but like priority access to CNC machining, 3D printing, some basic fixturing, right? The ability to create some fixtures or whatever, and things like that. And obviously you would either have to, on the team doing it, have, a mechanical design engineer, or have one like on staff. But I was just thinking to myself, for a lot of these like early stage hardware companies, I'm sure, Aaron, if some talented designers and some people that can do some machining and 3D printing, if you were like, hey, we're just going to only work on this thing and we're going to rapidly iterate and sprint as fast as we can in 30 days, like I feel like you could go from almost, no prototype's been developed, we've just got some designs, to we have a fully functioning prototype in 30 days. You know what I mean? If you really, really busted it and had a team like working on it like that. And so I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, there's business accelerators, right, that exist, and they're 13 weeks, and a lot of them are laissez-faire, and you're coming in and you're talking to attorneys and all this stuff. But I was thinking like, man, I feel like in 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, if you just had like a hardware build prototype sprint, I would be really curious on like what you could come up with at the end of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think small teams and talented people are part of that magic formula. There's an engineer that I've gotten to know over the years, Ian McCathern. He's been on the Being an Engineer podcast for a couple of years. In fact, he was one of our speakers at the first PDX last year. Brilliant engineer. Probably one of the most talented engineers I've ever met. And he can, he's I think mechanical engineer is his background, but he gets into some software and some programming, and he can do a lot of different things. And having people on your team like that who are really pretty good at multiple disciplines of engineering, I think really accelerates the pace at which you're able to move. He told a story at PDX last year of being on a small team and developing an artificial heart. All right. So an artificial heart. This is a lot, right? It was more than 4 or 6 weeks, but I think it was under a year.
Yeah.
Start to finish. They developed legitimately an artificial heart that functioned and got it into some animal trials in under a year, which is insanely fast to develop a legitimate artificial heart. There's only one other company out there I know of who has done this, and I'll tell you, it took them a lot longer
Yeah.
than a year to that point. So, and he was part of a small team. I think there were 3 or 4 people on the team. I don't know who the others were, but I know Ian, and he can just do so many different things. So
Yeah.
a small team with really talented people, man, you can move at light speed.
I know. And it's almost like, too, in that situation, you can like, you're almost blocking out. It's like, okay, we don't need to do all this fundraising. We don't need to be doing all of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're just kind of so laser focused. I don't know. And it may be wishful thinking, but feels like to me, it's like VC fundraising gambit focuses your attention on all of these other things that are not actually driving the actual core device and hardware forward. And something like that, I'm like, you come out on the other side and like, how much did you actually do to increase your valuation? Like, so much more than paying a lot of money to go to some pitch event and, you know what I mean, in New York or something like that. So anyway, this is just wishful thinking, I guess. But
Well, there's some decidedly limitations or inefficiencies when you need a brain that's an expert in topic A to communicate with a brain that's an expert in topic B, right? There's this transfer of knowledge that has to happen if you have to have multiple people on the team, because there's no one person that can do both. Thinking of my father-in-law right now, who is in a completely different field, but he was a real estate investor for a long time and just picked up coding and has now become very proficient with software development. And he put together this like kind of incredible, it took him years, he spent a long time on it, but he put this incredible piece of software together that makes it really easy. It automates like all this back end paperwork to place offers on homes that are listed in the MLS, the multiple listing service. I think that's the acronym. Anyway, he's also consulted for companies who are pretty much trying to do the same thing that he has done, and probably can't get into any details, but I know that companies out there have spent like millions of dollars trying to do the same thing that he did basically by himself. I think he had one person helping him as well. But it's just an illustration of how if you have the expertise in all the relevant topics, so in his example, he knows real estate already. He knows real estate investing, and he picked up coding. And so now he's an expert in both. And he was able to put this thing together for cost of living for a couple of years, as opposed to millions or tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. If are you good on time? I have a couple
Yeah, I can keep going.
Okay. So this is like, a question about kind of when you and your team are working on things, like in a way, and it's less, no, I guess it's the exact same thing to a degree. Like when you're building a fixture, a piece of custom equipment, custom machinery, there's iterations, there's prototypes, right? There's problem solving within, the product development process, right? That you have to do. How much I'm thinking like there's FEA for medical devices, right? Like your finite element analysis, and like this is going to bend and this is going to stress, et cetera. Like, is there almost like a dynamic component moves from like part of the cell, or it gets grabbed and it moves here? Like, is there anything that you guys have that like is like kind of a unique element of your, I'll still call it product development process, even if it's for a fixture, for a machine, for a piece of equipment? Like, walk me through where you see something that's unique or different that you guys do than maybe a traditional medical device development. I'm just very curious.
Yeah, for all of you listeners out there, I promise that I did not pay Spencer to give me this leading
Yeah, this
question,
wasn't a loaded question. This was like me freewheeling here.
Right, but this is a perfect segue into most of what we do is engineering services, right? People come to us with an idea and we develop a machine or a fixture or a product, whatever it is. We don't really have products of our own until recently. And we have developed a couple of our own. And one of them is called Easy Motion, and is a product that we developed to meet an internal need problem that we saw, which is that not all engineers, in fact, most engineers, mechanical engineers, are not also programmed. And we're building automated machines. So we've got mechanical design guys who are designing in CAD and building things. But then we have our controls team who comes in and does the programming, right? Makes all the robot and the HMI and the PLC and the motors talk to each other and actually move and do something useful. So that's a pretty niche skill set, the controls engineer, the programming. And it was slowing us down because we didn't have enough controls engineers to keep up with the mechanical design.
Right.
And
there's a loop lag there, right? Like,
yes, exactly. It's the same thing I was talking about before, where if you can have one brain that knows how to do both things, it's so much more efficient than two people who are trying to collaborate on doing that thing. So we developed this product called Easy Motion, and it's pre-integrated hardware and software. The software is really kind of the technology that we developed, but it allows anyone, no programming experience required, to create automated motion.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
so
play
you're
it while
showing
we're.
it perfect. Yeah, so this right here, there's the drag and drop programming interface, right? It's no code visual logic block programming. So like you want to extend an air cylinder, there's a block for extend air cylinder. You want to
Right.
move a motor that's on a stage to, position 3.2 inches. There's a block, and you drag it onto the screen and you type in 3.2 inches and the motor moves there. And you string all these blocks together into a sequence, and now you can do pretty sophisticated automated sequences using this. It's super fast. You don't need any special industrial training, right? You don't need to know Python or PLC,
Yeah.
ladder logic programming, anything like that. Anyone can just pick this up and start using it. And it's been pretty amazing for us because now we use this internally. We sell it as a product, but we also use it internally when a customer comes to us and says, here's the process that we want to automate. I'm not really sure how to do it. You guys develop the process and then build a machine around it. We deploy Easy Motion to really quickly develop that recipe of motion, right? Where we're going to move this motor, and then we're going to pause, and then we're going to extend that air cylinder, and then we're going to wait for this sensor to get triggered, and then we're going to do something else. And that allows us to very, very quickly, rapidly develop a manufacturing process, whether it's a testing or inspection or assembly or whatever it is. And that's something unique that we have and utilize.
That's really cool. I mean, I really did like like I should have asked about that before and I didn't, but that was really not like loaded question. Then once you started talking, I was like, oh wait, this is Easy Motion. Yeah. But no, I think there's a lesson to be learned here, right? More broadly too, around productizing something that like you guys use it internally, right? And then deploy it and it is the deliverable, right? Albeit completely customized, etc. But it is something that you guys make and sell, but then you use it in your own internal kind of product development process for these automations and workflows and things, and then just deploy it. And it saves you guys probably so much time. I can't even imagine how much time it saves you.
It legitimately cuts down if you're starting from the same place, like a blank piece of paper, right, for a controls engineer, what would have taken 30 to 40 hours, you can legitimately do in 20 minutes now because it's a product. Everything's all pre-integrated. The software is so easy and fast to use. It's not a solution for everything, right? It's not a solution, for example, like heavy industrial automation that needs to communicate with an MES or a larger system. It doesn't have great communication protocols with external systems. But for like developing new processes, it's really perfect. Or for like cycle testing is another great use case for it.
Yeah. There's one more thing I want to show you, and then we can maybe wrap after this. But I came across this company a while ago, and I think they actually launched something new recently. But it's called Zoo. Are you familiar with them, Aaron?
No, you know all of the companies and the new tools, and you've got your
ear to the floor. So you can see right there. There's like a text to CAD element. So he just changed the pitch from this to that, right? So it's kind of prompt change the pitch to 3, right? So it's a way to kind of do CAD, professional CAD platform, but it uses some machine learning and text to CAD, so you can more easily do certain functions. Right.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And even build almost stock components or whatnot, right? Hey, I need to build a CPU fan, and it just puts it together for you. Right. So, I've actually used it a couple times to build, hey, I need a small component and it looks like this, right? I've actually used it a couple times, and it's, obviously it's in the early aughts. So if you're doing a complex assembly or multi-component thing, it was just kind of struggling a little bit, especially if it's completely custom, you know what I mean? I showed you that just to, I think it's cool, but also to say I'm really excited to see where, this kind of all the product development type stuff that we've been talking about kind of merges with, large language models and machine learning, but then also kind of physics engines that are getting so much better to where you can almost do, for instance, say you had, completely set up a custom fixture and automation process for, machine, and you've got everything loaded in and it's in an intelligent system, right? Where you could, run it under a specific, set of parameters, and do a, in a virtual wear test or virtual fatigue test on your own piece of equipment to say like, hey, this is going to be the thing that probably fails first because it's experiencing the most torque. And then the thing holding it is, this type of thing. So maybe you need to create a stronger fixture to hold this drill bit or something to that effect, right? Like, but almost like the broader point there is this like virtual environment to do physical, almost more like dynamic multi-component FEA that gives you a lot more insight into when and how things are going to fail and at what point in time. And then like the next logical step to me there is also like, almost like a chemical based for biocompatibility testing and things like that, where it's like we have all the known variables, right? And all the pieces of this puzzle here, and that's something machine learning I think could do. But anyways, I just this stuff trips me out, and I'm just like, it's still so early, and there's still like so many tools that are like even just getting discovered. So I'm bullish on it. You guys got to try Zoo. Maybe it's in your next Wednesday, like the skills thing.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll check out Zoo for sure.
Yeah.
Have you seen Backflip?
What's that?
This one is from Greg Mark, the founder of Mark Forged. This is his new company, Backflip.ai maybe, but it's an AI tool, and
3D scan to CAD. Oh my gosh!
Yes. So any of you out there who've done 3D scanning and reverse engineering, it's not a straightforward process. Some media would have you believe that you just scan an object and you're done, right? You have this beautiful, pristine parametric CAD model, but no, that is not the case. There's a pretty lengthy step in between scanning and finished CAD model. And so what they're doing at Backflip is you scan this thing and it will create a fully featured, parametrically linked SolidWorks CAD file. I think they might have some other CAD versions in there, but I know for sure SolidWorks is one of them. It's native, so it actually has this like macro that gets exported, and the macro will literally build feature by feature your part in SolidWorks. So you end up with this native SolidWorks file that's fully featured. Really, really cool.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
This is so cool, man. And so it comes with this hardware is like part of their system. This scanning hardware, right?
I don't think so. I think the scanning hardware is agnostic.
Yeah,
and
whatever has LiDAR, basically, or...
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I don't think that they sell the scanning hardware. I think they just sell the software that interprets it.
Oh,
I could be wrong about that.
No, I think you're right. Well, this one is just straight up image, right? Image to 3D model to...
Yes, wow. Right, yeah.
This is so cool. Yeah. It's funny too, like a lot of people that do game development have been like a lot of this type of stuff, because it's like, hey, like, if I'm trying to build, like an orc, you know what I mean, for a game, right? They can do this like idea to mesh and like very quickly deploy like, a castle or an orc or something like that for some video game. And so I've seen a lot of them do this. So I've got one more thing, and then we'll cut this off because we could just literally keep talking. So I think this is a new tool that I've been like messing with since we even last talked. But this has turned into one of my like daily drivers, if you will.
Okay.
Right. So I'll share my screen here. I'm just going to share this whole screen. Okay. Right. So we've got this up here. Okay. And then let's go to your LinkedIn, and I'll show you where I'm going with this in a second. So this is called DIA, DIA browser. Right? So it's called DIA browser. So it's a replacement for Chrome, but it's LLM native, right? So you can say add tabs. I want to add Aaron's LinkedIn, and then I want to add Easy Motion Pipeline, okay? Then I could say, write me, and you could do this same thing within any given, right, browser window, right?
So this is a plugin for Chrome and
no.
Like
so it is a fully new
standalone?
browser. It completely replaces Chrome, right?
Got it.
So write me an inquiry message to Aaron asking about easy motion purchasing. Right. So it's going to call on whatever tabs you choose. Right.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it's going to call on whatever tabs you choose. You can upload documents, and then it's basically you're pushing it through an LLM. You see what I'm saying?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then you can change your writing style. You can copy it as an image, etc. But the cool thing is you can build custom little skills, like I was talking about earlier. So if I say XO follow outreach, right? So I just do /XOFOUT. So it knows from the skill and prompt that I've created it's doing some research on you, your LinkedIn, et cetera. Then it writes you an outreach message asking you to join XO MedTech, right?
That's awesome.
And it's not perfect, right? I'll probably have to do this, but like you can imagine like all the different little small skills and the ability like to be on someone's profile or something and be like, hey, like tell me, when did this company hit this milestone? And it'll go find their press release. Yeah, it meet it at this date. Okay, great.
I could see how you could connect that with a variety of different data sources and string them all together with webhooks or whatever.
Yep.
And build out a pretty sophisticated communication tool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm like the ability to just have it, and it's like similar like Ask Steve, which is another one I really like too. But this being the ability to like call on tabs is so interesting, because I'm somebody that'll have an ungodly amount of tabs open. You know what I mean? And like just even the ability, like you'll have some research open. You'll be like, pull me all the data points from this research, call the tab about this thing, right? Boom.
Yeah.
Gets it there. So anyways, it's called Dia browser. I'm so bullish on it. It's already been like a massive time savings for me. But that's my last tool. That's my last new thing to throw at you today, Aaron.
You mentioned Ask Steve, which I'm not familiar with, but it reminded me of, remember that Ask Jeeves?
Yeah, I think that's where he got
Yahoo or something.
Yeah, I think that's where. And he's like a Northwest Arkansas guy. Honestly, I would check out Ask Steve if I was you too, Aaron, because like especially if some of your guys are like a little bit more proficient on the coding side, because like his does, like I don't think Dia has the ability to do this, but like Ask Steve, you can create like custom webhooks like really easily and then push them to like N8N automations or what have you, zaps, that kind of stuff. And it's really, really cool. And you can even like select which model certain skills need to use, but like it's Ask Steve has like some pretty powerful abilities to be able to do that kind of stuff with webhooks. So
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for introducing yet another wonderful web tool to me.
I know I lied. I told you that was my last one. And then I threw Ask Steve at you, but well, this has been so awesome, Aaron. Like I really like first time we talked, I think I blew through and probably talked way too much, but it was like so much fun. And then this one was like, this pod was awesome. Like, and everybody, if you're in the space, even if whether you have a project that you think, whether it's, cycle testing, fatigue testing, custom automation, advanced machinery or whatever, you got to check out Pipeline, whether you have an active project or not, just to put them on your radar. They're doing incredible work and they're just awesome people, as you obviously can tell from talking with Aaron for being here and hanging out with us on the pod for a while. But Aaron, I'll let you wrap it up, in closing. Anything you want to plug, anybody you want to shout out, kind of floor is yours to wind us down here.
Well, thank you again for having me on, and not just having me on, but for your contribution, Spencer, to the engineering community with XO MedTech and your podcast. I love building out the community for engineers so that we have better tools, we can move faster, we can develop things quicker. I think to myself, what would the world be like if we could accelerate the pace of engineering by even 5%, right? Like what difference would that make to to the human experience? And I think the answer is pretty significant. So all these tools that help push forward engineering and being able to do things faster, I love, and I appreciate people like you who contribute to that great work.
Thank you.
I guess the only plug I have, we talked about it already, but PDX, October 21st and 22nd, just outside of Phoenix. The cost to attend is pretty low. It's $295, and I think we're going to get a code out through your podcast to all of your listeners that will give them even a discount. And hey, Honestly, I would just want to see engineers show up and learn here. If the ticket price is prohibitive for you, reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'll figure something out. If you want to be there, contact me. We'll figure out a way to get you there.
Yeah, and continuing education type thing, right? Like this is something you can ask your boss, you can ask your employer, and say like, "Hey, this is a engineering focused, professional development and
Yep.
educational advancement type event." A lot of companies have funds for professional development these days. So, I'm sure if you asked Aaron and the team, "Hey, do you guys have like a template letter for me to send to my boss?" I'm sure they would have something,
We
right?
do. We do. Yep. It is
Awesome.
on the wave.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you again. Everybody, like I said, check out Pipeline. Go check out the PDX Expo event. Go attend if you can. Ask your boss to pay for it. Aaron, I can't say thanks enough. This was fantastic. Like really, really fascinating pod, and like honestly, learned so much from you. And like you're one of those business leaders that like people need to be taking note of. Just from what you guys are doing at Pipeline, core work, but also the way that you're doing it with the team and the culture and the organizational hygiene. So thank you again, Aaron, and for everybody that tuned in and stuck around this whole time. Thank you so much. I hope this was valuable and useful for you. But Aaron, have a good one. Take care, man.
Thank you so much, Spencer. I appreciate it.